Well, good day, my friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Hebraic Living, Walking with the Messiah broadcast. We're excited to have you here with us today as we explore the rich traditions and teachings of Hebraic living, guiding you on a journey to walk in alignment with your Messiah. Now, in last week's episode entitled AI and End Time Prophecy, Part 5, we talked about Revelation 18 and 19 and how it described the collapse of the final world system, the vindication of the remnant, the marriage supper of the Lamb, and the triumphant return of Yeshua as King of Kings. Now, today we enter part 6, the millennial kingdom, Eden restored. This is the episode, my friends, where the story comes full circle from the rebellion of Satan to the restoration of creation, from the garden lost to the garden returned, from the curse to the tree of life. Now, in episodes 1 through 5, we trace the rise and fall of the beast system. Part 6 reveals what comes after: the reign of Messiah, the healing of the nations, and the return of the world as it was before the fall. Now, remember, my friends, to plug in every Tuesday at the same time to see the show live. And you can also view it on demand on the lambnetwork.tv website. Each show is also recorded on the Daily Torah YouTube channel. Welcome to all of our new listeners. And if you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button so you never miss a single episode. And remember, my friends, to share this message with your social media friends and family. You never know whose life you may affect. So let's get into it today. We're going to talk about the Garden of Eden, how it's been restored, and let's take a minute to pause here. During Genesis, Eden was lost, right? We had the fall of man, but here, after the beast power is finally put down and Satan is put into the pit, we can now have a time of refreshing where Eden is restored and we have the millennial kingdom being ushered in. This episode that we're going to go through today together highlights Eden's restoration in the millennial kingdom, symbolizing harmony and renewal for all creation. And then we're going to talk about the return of the tree of life. Yes, the tree of life returns in the kingdom, representing eternal life and divine blessing in prophetic traditions and ancient texts. And then we're going to talk about the Messianic, the Hebraic, and the Talmudic perspectives. And we're going to explore prophetic traditions. And we're going to connect all the biblical promises to creation's renewal. Aren't you excited that the kingdom of God is finally going to be on this earth? All the death and destruction that we see around us today will be gone. We're going to have restoration and redemption. The narrative completes its arc. It's going to move from rebellion and loss unto renewal and restoration of creation's original beauty, how God designed it. Yes, the whole creation, when the fall of man happened, was destroyed. It was altered, right? And now we're going to see it in the kingdom, how it was originally designed with all its glory and with all its beauty. The tree of life symbolizes the lifting of the curse and the return of paradise, offering healing and hope. And then we're going to have global peace, right? The reign of the millennial kingdom with Yeshua as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords is going to bring healing to the nations and restores peace, reflecting a world return to harmony and the pre-fall glory. We can't even begin to imagine how glorious this time is going to be. We just get glimpses of it now, but it's going to be far more beautiful than what we can ever imagine. In episodes 1 through 5, as I mentioned, we trace the rise and the fall of the beast system. This episode is going to reveal what comes after the reign of Messiah, the healing of the nations, and the return of the world as it was before the fall of man. So let's look at the pristine cosmic order. There's going to be perfect harmony and balance. The universe was governed by flawless order, balance, and unity, resulting in complete peace and purpose. And there was unity under this divine authority before Satan messed everything up. All the celestial beings, including the angels, they operated in unison, following God's authority with unwavering purpose and loyalty. There was an absence of corruption. This primordial state featured no corruption, chaos, or conflict, forming the basis for future divine kingdoms. My friends, to understand the millennial kingdom, we must first understand what the universe was like before the fall of Satan. This universe in harmony, this unity of heaven and earth, they were perfectly aligned. They formed a seamless and harmonious existence with no separation. There was peace that thrived with no rebellion. While death and decay are absent, it ensured everlasting vitality. And there was this holistic and unified existence. The spiritual and physical realms were intertwined, offering holistic existence and profound unity throughout creation. This world was beautified. Remember, it says in Genesis 1:2 that the earth was void and without form, and then God did the recreation, right? But before that recreation, it was also glorified and beautified. In fact, probably the whole universe in our galaxy here was glorified and beautified. And it was only after the cosmic order and the disruption and the rebellion that all the planets died and the earth was void and empty. It too had died. And then God recreated it in Genesis. So if we explore this word shalom, which God uses, remember on the Shabbat, on the day 7, there is peace. Well, it goes way beyond the meaning of peace, right? We know that shalom means peace, but we also know, many of us in the Hebraic and Torah observant communities understand shalom means much, much more than that. But to those who are new, shalom signifies more than peace. It encompasses wholeness, harmony, and everything being in its rightful place. The state of original creation, this shalom reflects the world before the fall. It was a seamless tapestry where heaven and earth were united. And there was the presence of the divine. Shalom included the idea of God dwelling openly with creation, symbolizing perfect relationship and order. And then we had the fall of Hasatan, right? He was the guardian cherub, but he became prideful, right? And you can read about that in Isaiah and also Ezekiel, where it talks about the fall. And we'll go over that a little bit. But Satan's pride and corruption led to his fall from grace as described in the biblical passages. His arrogance disrupted divine harmony and order. And there was cosmic consequences because of this. Satan's rebellion fractured reality, introducing chaos and spiritual conflict. His fall had a profound impact on the spiritual realm. And we see elements of that throughout all society today, right? Good is called evil, evil is called good. We have death and war and squalor and prostitution and drug abuse and all the chaotic parts of our society, that he has touched every part of it and has created this chaos and spiritual conflict. Even amongst the believers, there's such division. He's very cunning, and he loves to cause division and heartache in the lives of humans, because we are created in the Creator's image, in God's image. So he hates God and he hates us, because when he sees us, he sees elements of God in us. And so this narrative in the Bible, in the scriptures, it highlights the dangers of arrogance and the rebellion and the consequences of disobeying divine order. He wanted to be like God, and God cast him out. So let's look at these Hebraic words for Hamas, and we know who Hamas is, the terrorist group, right? In Israel, that's always in Gaza, that's always causing, attacking Israel and wants to wipe them off the face of the earth. They took this name for a reason. Hamas signifies violence, and that's what that terror group means. Their name is violence, and it signifies corruption and injustice, pointing to deep moral wrongs present in society. So we see that in these groups that masquerade as, wanting to bring in religions of peace, but really there is no peace with them. They are constantly at war. They're constantly killing, even blowing themselves up to create chaos in the world, to create Hamas in the world. And then there's this word avan. Avan means perversion or twistedness, representing a distortion of what is right and ethical. The fall of Satan fractured the cosmos. Heaven and earth were torn apart, right? We don't really realize the significant disorder that happened under this cosmic battle. And everything was torn apart. Everything was corrupted. And the spiritual realm became veiled. Death entered the world, and Eden was sealed. So a lot happened during this time of when the fall of Satan. God recreates the world. He puts in Adam and Eve. Satan, through the serpent, deceives Eve and Adam. They both eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil that they were told not to eat of, and they get kicked out of Eden. And Eden is then sealed with the flaming sword of God that nobody can re-enter and take from the tree of life. And the tree of life was in the garden. They could have taken from the tree of life. Instead, they took from the wrong tree. There was no prohibition from taking from the tree of life. There was only one tree that they were told not to touch, and that was the one that they were tempted to touch and to take of. So Eden was the first sanctuary, my friends. It was a sacred place. Eden represented the original sacred space where humanity experienced divine presence and harmony in a lush environment. It's a foreshadowing of later temples. Eden's role foreshadowed future temples, establishing foundational themes of worship and spiritual connection in biblical tradition. God always wants to dwell with his people, and he dwelt with Adam and Eve in the garden. He dwelt with the Israelites in the temple, and he wants to dwell with us in the future kingdom that's coming. So the Garden of Eden symbolized divine presence and set the template for sacred spaces throughout his history. My friends, Eden was not just a garden, it was the first sanctuary. And there's some unique features that I want to go through of Eden. There was this divine human relationship. Eden featured an intimate connection between God and humanity, fostering closeness and guidance in daily life. In it, there was the tree of life was there, and that sustained immortality, removing sickness and decay and offering eternal well-being. They could have taken from that tree of life, but they chose not to. I don't know why. When it was there in the midst of them, I guess they were enjoying good health and vibrance there, and they just never thought of really understanding what the tree of life offered them. But basically, there was a harmony of these realms. Heaven and earth overlapped in Eden, and it created a perfect space where divine and human realms coexisted. Can you imagine, my friends, living in the Garden of Eden, like with Adam and Eve and all the animals? They were all tame. You could have had pet lions, giraffes, elephants, all the different animals, and the fruits there were magnificent. They just grew, and you just go and pick them. You didn't have to till the soil, and there wasn't any thorns and bristles and bugs eating your produce. Everything was in perfect harmony. And, they lived to be over 900 years old, even after they were kicked out of the garden. So, they were vital. I mean, look at us when we're in our 50s, 60s, we're starting to get ragged and old and aches and pains. And here, they lived for 10 lifetimes and more. And so there was vitality and vibrance there during the early days with our forefathers. Now, let's look at this word Eden, okay? Eden. The Hebrew word Eden signifies delight, pleasure, and abundance, embodying ultimate fulfillment and joy in biblical context. I don't think we can really contemplate what it was like to be in Eden, but I would say that if you've ever been out in the woods to a beautiful park or someplace nice and it's just you're all alone, there's no buildings, there's no people, you have meadows and flowers, wildflowers, you might see some animals out there, some deer, and there's might be a lake there or a flowing river, and you hear the water and the bubbling brook, and you're just in this very tranquil this very tranquil place of serenity. That's about as close to Eden as you're going to get. And it's viewed as a model for the millennial kingdom, and it's reflecting God's original design for humanity and restored paradise. It's a paradise. I mean, all of us, wouldn't you just love to be able to relax and enjoy life a little bit instead of getting up in the morning and rushing and going to work and fighting traffic and all the chaos that's in the cities or your places of work, or sitting in a cube all day, or just waiting until it's time to go home, and you're trying to do the best you can to glorify God in your work. But it's not ideal. But imagine if you're living in the Garden of Eden and you're living in the millennial kingdom. We're going next week in our last part 7, we're going to talk about what is life going to be like living in the kingdom of God. And so stay tuned for next week's episode, because we're going to conclude next week and we're going to talk about that topic. But just imagine, close your eyes for a moment and just imagine walking in the Garden of Eden with all its beauty, all the animals, babbling brooks maybe, and God's presence is there. Maybe God is there talking with you, and he's, advising you, and you're able to talk with God face to face, one-on-one, of the avatar of God's presence there with you in whatever form that it was in the garden. Just imagine being there and enjoying that time with God, with your wife and her husband, and just enjoying that time in this beautiful setting. No chaos, no violence. Everything is peaceful. And, it's just enjoying it day by day. But then what happened? Well, of course, we had Satan come in and destroyed everything, right? But today we want to talk about the return of the king and the restoration. We spent so much time in the last few episodes talking about the image of the beast and AI and how it's all going to transform here in the end times. Today, I want to give us a refreshment of the return of the king and the restoration. We're going to have this triumphant return, and it's going to mark a pivotal fulfillment of biblical prophecy, bringing hope and renewal for all humanity. And again, if you've never listened to my 41-part series on God's plan for humanity on the Daily Torah YouTube channel, go and listen to that. They're only 15-minute portions, and I go through all the holy days and God's plan for all humanity and how beautiful at the end when the kingdom is restored, how it's going to be. But I'm going to give you some foretaste here today, because the saints are going to join Messiah for a 1,000-year reign, symbolizing divine leadership and unity. We're going to be living and administrating with Yeshua, the King of Kings. Can you imagine that, my friends? That King Yeshua will be reigning on Mount Zion in Jerusalem, and we as his administrative team will be getting our assignments, and we'll be going out throughout the earth and helping spread Torah, helping rebuild the waste places, and beautifying the earth and teaching people obedience to Torah and peace and love, not overlording them like the Islamics want to do, not putting people under burqas, not putting people in cages. No, we're going to have free will. The people are going to have free will. We're going to oversee everything. And it's going to be a beautiful time of peace and harmony. There's going to be this restoration and fulfillment, right? We're finally going to be leading truly fulfilling lives. And there's going to be this restoration of all things, everything. Think about every part of society, my friends, is going to be restored, fulfilling God's ultimate plan for humanity. Last week we talked about Revelation 19, how it ends with the reign of Yeshua. Well, Revelation 20 begins. Revelation 19 ends with the return of Yeshua, and then Revelation 20 begins his reign here on earth. It's going to be an exciting time, and it's very, very close to being fulfilled. We are in the final stages, my friends, whether you realize it or not. So that's just why I encourage everyone to make their calling and election sure, to be about our Father's business and spreading the gospel and making disciples any way that you can, praying always without ceasing, and really having our heart, mind, and soul towards the kingdom of God. Because the millennial reign, the saints, and that's hopefully you and me, are going to reign for 1,000 years alongside Messiah, making a unique era in biblical prophecy. 1,000 years is a long time, right? It's like 10 or more generations. So we're going to be busy for 1,000 years. Probably the first 100 years, we're going to be learning about what Torah really represents and what the ideal and the original design was. And we're a lot that we need to learn. We think we know everything now, but we just really don't know hardly anything. And what Yeshua and Messiah, they're going to teach us and give us responsibility, and we're going to learn, and we're going to grow, and we're going to be a blessing upon the earth. Each one of us have gifts and talents that Yeshua is going to utilize, and be able to help us go out and make the world a better place and to restore this Garden of Eden type environment throughout the whole earth. With Satan bound, wars are going to end and creation undergoes a restoration, promoting global peace and healing. The Abraham Accords that we see today are just, they're going to look like chump change compared to the true peace and harmony it's going to encompass the globe. There's going to be true global peace and healing, and justice is going to flow from Jerusalem, not from the Vatican, as so many believe. And the Jews have not been replaced. Israel has not been replaced with the church and the Vatican. No, justice is going to flow from Jerusalem, directing nations to pursue righteousness and fulfill divine promises. And we, as the saints of Yeshua, will be there to administer this justice from Jerusalem. And yes, those who do not accept Yeshua, they won't be part of it. Whether you're Jewish or non-Jewish, if you're not with the program, if you're not a believer of Yeshua and one of his saints, then you're not going to have any authority over anything on the earth. No matter how much you try to bribe or steal something, it's not going to happen, because those attributes are not going to exist in the kingdom of God. They will be put down. Any rebellion, anything that comes against the king will be put down very, very quickly. My friends, in the millennial kingdom, Eden is restored on a global scale. And this should excite each and every one of us that this time is coming. Now, let me give you a little glimpse of what life in the millennial kingdom is going to be like. There's going to be prevailing peace and righteousness, right? During the millennial kingdom, peace and righteousness will characterize daily life, transforming society for the better. Nations will experience unparalleled harmony with cooperation and understanding, replacing conflict and division. Prosperity and justice will be restored and will be widespread, with fair treatment for all and flourishing communities. We will no longer see places like our governments, especially here in the U.S., like Congress, who hide things and kind of reward themselves, and they take the bribes of others to be able to get things done, and they have these hush funds that where they have improprieties, but yet they try to make laws and regulations that benefit themselves and lord it over the people. No, none of that nonsense is going to exist in the kingdom of God. Everything is going to be filled with righteous judgment, and creation will be renewed. You see all the not nonsense, but all the destruction and decay that we see in creation today, in the pollution, all of that will be restored, enabling humanity to live in a blessed environment with widespread knowledge of God. The knowledge of God will cover the earth like the waters cover the sea. Everybody will know what is happening. There will be a global government, a one world government finally, but it won't be under the UN. It will be under King Yeshua and his administrative team that will be scattered throughout all the world, bringing righteous judgment and justice to all humanity. So let's look at Isaiah 11, verse 9, right? It says, "They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters covered the sea." Just like I said, you can read all of Isaiah 11 and just get a foretaste of what the kingdom's going to be, right? We're going to rebuild the waste places. The ox and the lion are going to lay down together and eat together. A little child's going to play in the cobra's hole. You can read about all this in Isaiah 11. And we're going to talk about, there's going to be harmony among opposites. The wolves and the lambs are going to be dwelling together. and it depicts the end of hostility in a world transformed by peace. Children will safely play among once dangerous animals, illustrates a vision of complete safety and trust. You'll be able to let your kids go out and play, and you won't have to worry about them getting hurt or getting eaten by a lion or bitten by a snake or some other animal. No, all the animals are going to be at peace. The earth will be filled with knowledge of God, and this signifies universal peace and the deeper understanding among all people. Everyone's will have the veil lifted from their minds in their eyes. Satan will no longer be here to tempt and deceive anyone. There will be truth and knowledge for all people, and everyone will understand who God is, who Yeshua is, and what the purpose is for humanity and for them. There will finally be true peace upon the earth. And then in Isaiah 65, he talks about this vision of renewal. And just you read the whole chapter of Isaiah 65, but in verse 23, it says, "They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth children for trouble, for they shall be the descendants of the blessed of the Lord." How many times have we seen our children grow up and go astray? You know, they go to college and they get involved with these radical groups, and the next thing you know, they're protesting in the streets against Israel and against anything, for anything that's immoral or filled with debauchery. They're for it, right? Who gives them those thoughts? Well, they come from the evil one. Well, no longer will we bring up children that'll be destined for trouble or getting involved in drugs or sexual improprieties or any types of any other forms of debauchery that we see in the world today. Our children will be blessed, and we will be blessed to have them, and they will be followers and obedient to Torah and to God. They will be faithful in all that they do, and they'll be happy, prosperous, joyous families upon the earth. Long life will return. People will thrive, living to enjoy the fruits of their labor in peace. Sorrow and weeping will disappear, replaced by abundant joy and lasting peace for everyone. A renewed world full of harmony, where previous troubles are forgotten and blessings are visible everywhere. My friends, can you imagine living in a world like that? I believe the people of Iran are getting a glimpse of that right now. They had been living under tyranny for 47 years, and now they are finally getting a glimpse of restoration and harmony, but it's still in a fallen world. You know, Satan is still out there causing trouble and division, but at least some of the people are getting free, and I believe they will too become believers of Yeshua and will be part of the kingdom when the time comes. You know, it says in the scriptures, my friends, that Assyria, Egypt, and Israel will all be called sons of God. So we will all be together at one point in time. The veil will be lifted as sons and daughters of Abraham, though Assyria is outside of that realm or that family lineage, but for some reason, God has this deep love for the Assyrian people because he prophesies about it in Isaiah. So let's look at this word tikkun, right? You've probably heard of this word before. So tikkun, you know, it refers to restoration, repair, and renewal, highlighting transformation and healing in Hebrew tradition. In spiritual context, tikkun involves repairing or improving the world both physically and spiritually. In the millennial kingdom is seen as the great tikkun, a period of ultimate restoration and renewal for all creation. My friends, this gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. This new world that's going to come of ultimate restoration, the renewal of all creation. I love being out in God's creation. If you want to get close to God, my friends, I tell this all the time to the people when I teach, get out in God's creation. Get close to God. You want to see God? Get out in his creation. Look at the flowers, the birds, the trees. Let's feel the wind on your face, the warmth of the sun. Even in wintertime, the snowflakes and the snow that falls. You know, so much beauty, the ocean, the sand, watching crops grow, watching new leaves sprout and fruit develop on trees. Watch the ants and the spiders and how they move around, and they have no commanders, but the ants go around and they're working hard and building up their little hills and storing up for winter. So the squirrels with their nuts, so much beauty in the earth today. And yeah, we have these dangerous animals today because the creation's been distorted by the evil one, but there's a lot of beauty in the earth. And so we can see God's character in his presence and all of creation. And then we talk about in the millennial, and even after the millennium, we talk about the tree of life is going to return, and we see that in Revelation. And this is a symbol of restoration. The tree of life represents restoration and renewal, marking the fulfillment of divine promises to humanity. There's going to be this abundant provision, that's going to bear the tree of life in the ultimate new heavens and new earth is going to bear 12 kinds of fruit. The tree offers abundance throughout the year, signifying provision and sustenance. And its leaves are described as healing for the nations, representing hope, unity, and global well-being. So this is going to be a beautiful time, a beautiful place to go and visit in Jerusalem. We like to visit world capitals, right? And usually they're made nice, and they got museums and different things going on there, and it's the seat of power. Imagine visiting Jerusalem when King Yeshua is there, and the temple is restored, and everything is restored in its glory. It's going to be a beautiful, marvelous sight to see, a place to visit. You'll never want to leave. You're always going to want to be there. You're going to go up there for the feast and enjoy that time with all your brethren scattered throughout the world. It's going to be a very, very exciting time. And for me, I can't wait until it comes. So it's going to be soon, and we're looking forward to it. I look forward to seeing each of you in the kingdom, wherever you are scattered around the world. I pray that you will endure until the end, and that together we will all be there rejoicing. Now let's look at the Hebrew insight on this tree of life, this Etz Chaim. So Etz Chaim represents a source of divine vitality, embodying the spiritual nourishment essential in Hebrew tradition. The tree of life embodies wisdom and deep connection to God and its role in spiritual growth. Etz Chaim serves as a metaphor for the Torah, right? The Torah is called the tree of life, emphasizing its importance in sustaining and enriching Jewish and Hebraic life. My friends, what was lost in Genesis is restored in Revelation. Remember, Yeshua says, I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end. He is the Genesis and Revelation. He is the beginning and the end. The tree of life returns. It's not hidden. It's not a hidden garden anymore, but it is the center of the renewed world. What an exciting time this will be. And then we're going to have God's presence in the temple. God's glory is visibly and tangibly present in the temple, fulfilling ancient prophecies of restoration. The temple is going to be the center of worship and unity. The temple serves as a place where people are going to gather together to worship, fostering unity and spiritual renewal. And the temple highlights the direct relationship between humanity and God during the millennial kingdom. This is going to be a great time of celebration. Every Shabbat, the temple doors are going to be open. They're never going to be shut or closed. There's going to be shofars blowing, trumpets blowing, dancing, processions. There's going to be such glory and beauty and praise and worship before the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. You'll never going to want Shabbat to end. It's going to be a beautiful, wonderful time, and we're going to get to enjoy it every Shabbat for 1,000 years and beyond. Are you excited about that, my friends? You know, Ezekiel had this visionary temple and about the glorious divine presence. You read all of Ezekiel 38 and 39, he talks about the temple and how it's filled with the divine glory as God dwells among his people, symbolizing a restored relationship with humanity. And then he talks about the waters that flow from the temple, bringing healing and renewal to the land, signifying abundant life and restoration. The land is going to be restored. It's going to blossom and flourish. It's not going to be all these dead rocks and stone. When you go to Israel today, you see some of the land restored, but not all of it. You see a lot of desert and rocks everywhere, but under the millennial rule, everything is going to be restored. It's all going to be like a garden of Eden. Even the Dead Sea will probably come back to life as the healing waters flow down into the Jordan and down into the Dead Sea. It's going to be vibrant, teeming with fish, and it's going to be a glorious place to go and have a nice beach, enjoy the Mediterranean, and beautiful times of refreshing and vacationing and enjoying life forevermore. This is going to be an exciting time in this era of humanity. Nations are going to be drawn to the temple to worship, making it a global sanctuary, an Eden-like place for all of humanity. And there's going to be us as the remnant are going to be the ones that are going to have some authority in the kingdom under Yeshua. Do you understand what our roles are? It says in the Old Covenant, in the New Covenant, that we will be kings and priests of God Most High. Kings and priests and teachers and other roles that whatever God that deems for us to be involved with. But we are going to have this authority in the kingdom because we will be the ones that had faithful endurance. The remnant is composed of those who remain loyal under pressure. Are you remaining loyal, my friends, under pressure in this world today? Showing steadfastness even when facing external challenges, even maybe death. Do you have the loyalty and faith that Yeshua is asking from each and every one of us? Because through our unwavering commitment, we as the remnant receive special authority and recognition within the kingdom. And Yeshua says it's a narrow gate, it's a narrow path, and few who find it. So are you going to be among the few who find it? Remember, he says, many are called, but few are chosen. So are you going to give your allegiance to this world today? Are you going to buckle under pressure when the beast power arises and puts pressure upon every human being upon this earth? Or are you going to remain steadfast and with unwavering commitment and faith and loyalty to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords? Because our lives serve as an inspiration, and we will be entrusted with leadership and spiritual influence due to our loyalty and faith. So we do that now, but in the kingdom, we will have authority to share and to give our experiences to all those who come up out of the tribulation, all the humans who will still make it through and be alive and help us rebuild the waste places and teach them Torah. There's a lot of work that's going to be done. And then after the season, we'll be able to enjoy the millennial kingdom. But at first, there's going to be a lot of repairing, just like now. Just like after World War II and World War I, all the destruction, and we had to do rebuilding. Well, look at Iran and Gaza right now. They've had all this destruction. They have to rebuild. Well, there's going to be a time when the whole world is going to be under destruction, and we are going to have to help rebuild it. And that's going to take probably maybe hundreds of years to really do it the right way. Everything is going to be restructured and rebuilt, and we're going to do it the right way this time. And we're going to be reigning with Messiah under his guidance and leadership. The remnant becomes the leadership of the restored world. Our roles of us who are faithful, some of us will serve as judges, priests, rulers, teachers, and shepherds, guiding humanity in the restored world. Take a minute right now, my friends, and just picture yourself. Where do you fit in one of those categories? Are you a judge, a priest, or a ruler of a city maybe? Or are you a teacher? Are you a shepherd of nations? The teaching and leading and guiding those who have come out of the tribulation. Doctors, nurses, leaders who can offer hope and console people who are having traumas. There's going to be a lot of healing that needs to take place. It's just not everyone can be a leader and a rabbi or this or that, but each of us is going to play a part. And we're going to assume key spiritual and administrative responsibilities, providing leadership for the nations in this era. So start thinking about that, my friends, and start preparing your hearts and mind. Ask God, say, Lord, how can I serve you today? What role do you have for me in your kingdom? What do you see in me? Give me dreams and visions so I understand what role I'm going to play in the kingdom to come, under your kingdom, under your authority. How can I serve you and serve humanity? And when we have that attitude and when we are humble before him, then he will rise us up and put us into these places of authority. But if we're arrogant and selfish, like Satan, then we will have our part where in his part. We will have our part where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So you have to make sure that your hearts and minds are aligned with God and with Messiah. Because there is going to be the final defeat of Satan, the evil one. And there's going to be a final test. Now, if we're not part of the first resurrection and transformed when Yeshua returns during Yom Teruah, which I cover in my God's Plan for Humanity, where I go through all the holy days. But then there's a time when Satan is going to be released briefly after the millennium. At the end of the 1,000 years, Satan is going to be released for the final test. And it's not to gain power, but to expose the heart of rebellion. As I've taught many times before, Satan will go throughout the whole earth to see who the people who were born into the kingdom, are they really in alignment with God, or will their hearts be swayed like Satan's, and they'll be tempted like Eve to forsake God, to forsake Torah, even though we've been teaching them for 1,000 years or more or less, or throughout the whole millennial time, and giving them all the history of humanity. There will be many who will forsake God, and their deception will be revealed, even in a restored world, and they will be swallowed up. Poof, gone. So we, as believers of Messiah, we need to be the ones that prepare and hopefully prevent this last rebellion, but it's going to come because prophecy says it will come. How many of us have had children and we think we live a Torah observed lifestyle and we think our children are going to follow after us, and then they get older and the next thing you know, they forsake us, they forsake Torah, they go out and do their own thing. Satan gets them by the hook and they go out into the world and they do their own thing. Well, it's going to be kind of the same scenario. We're going to understand just how deceptive and how powerful this being is when he's released, because he's going to very, very easily lay sway over much of humanity in the millennial kingdom. You know, nations are deceived by choice, not force. No one's going to force them to turn. They will choose. They will freely choose. God gives us free will to choose, and they will choose to follow the evil one. But the uprising, the good news is the uprising is short-lived. There's not going to be a prolonged war. We're not going to go through another 6,000 years. No, judgment is immediate. Doesn't say how long, but I assume it's going to be very short-lived, that he will go out, deceive all the nations, and, you know, just like in the days of Noah, and all those who rebel will be destroyed because fire comes down from heaven. Satan is cast into the lake of fire, and evil is permanently removed. The rebellion that began before Eden ends forever. Now, many people ask, well, why do we got to go through this? If Satan's not there anymore, won't we just all naturally love God? Well, wouldn't you think that of Satan, right? There was no Satan before Satan. Who turned his heart and his mind against God? You know, we have free choice. And sadly to say, once you make that choice, it's ingrained in you and it becomes rebellion. You know, God says rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. So we, as spirit-filled believers, our souls and our spirits will be locked in during the first resurrection. And we hopefully, I believe that we will not be able to sin anymore, that sin will be totally removed from us. And the ones who will grow up in the millennium, they're still humans, and they're going to have to make a choice. And the choice they make will determine their future, because after the millennial, you know, the eighth day, the Shemini Atzeretz, which I cover in my plan for my 41-part series on God's plan for humanity, and I'll get into it next week also. What are we going to be doing for all eternity? We will all be spirit-filled beings at that time, spirit beings, glorious beings. And so then God's plan for us actually truly begins. It will be new beginnings. So there will be a new heavens and a new earth, and it will emerge after the millennial kingdom. It will represent the ultimate renewal and transformation for humanity. Everyone will be transformed into a glorious being. The new Jerusalem will descend to earth, radiating purity and glory, marking the fulfillment of divine promises. And God dwells permanently among humanity, bringing eternal peace and wiping away every tear as described in Revelation 21. Now we can look at this word, this Hebrew word chadash. It means new, renewed, or transformed to original glory, highlighting transformation rather than replacement. That creation is transformed. It's not discarded, underscoring renewal and restoration as the key theme. Hadash reflects a universe restored to a state even more glorious and purposeful than its original form. The universe will return to its pre-fall state, only greater. So let's look at the messianic takeaways in our last few minutes together here today. Eden is going to be restored. The millennial kingdom is portrayed as Eden restored, returning the world to its original divine design. The tree of life returns, representing immortality and healing, flowing directly from God. God's presence fills the earth as heaven and earth are reunited, signifying profound spiritual transformation. Those who remain faithful are rewarded with a position of authority, reflecting the importance of devotion and perseverance. The final defeat of evil leads to universal peace and healing, ending conflict and suffering for all creation. The story, my friends, ends with restored glory. But it's not the end of the story. It's a transformed creation, an eternal renewal for us all. And then we have, under the new heavens and the new earth, I believe we will go out and plant the heavens, the whole universe, the whole galaxies and the universes, billions and billions of them. We will be transforming them into new heavens and new earths for all time, for all eternity. Think about it. What are you going to be doing for all eternity? Are you going to be in the clouds playing harps every day? You're going to get bored with that. We will be out transforming planets, galaxies throughout the whole universe, possibly the multiverses that probably exist. We, like John says, we don't know what lies in store for us. We can't even begin to imagine the plans that God has for us. So, my friends, the millennial kingdom represents a restored world, reminiscent of Eden's original beauty and harmony. Genesis' loss is restored in Revelation. The curse is reversed, and peace replaces rebellion. Revelation concludes with Messiah's eternal reign, marking the story's completion in restoration and hope. Now, my friends, next week we will conclude with part 7, the New Jerusalem, life in the kingdom of God. Don't miss next week's episode. Share these with your friends and family, because you never know whose life you're going to affect. So until next time, walk in hope, stay grounded in Torah, and my friends, keep your eyes on Yeshua. If you missed today's show or want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all the other live Lamb Show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network. We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lambnetwork.tv website. I'm Jeffrey Clark. Thank you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.